I had been somewhat overweight my whole life. And then in my early 20s, I started getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And I was somewhat of a workaholic. So I was very sedentary lifestyle. And despite being overweight and very overweight, obese, I was relatively healthy. 2007, I was diagnosed with sleep apnea, and I got a CPAP machine. And then in January of 2008, at my normal checkup at the doctor, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol. I had also been suffering for many years with psoriasis, but I didn't really think about it being that big of a deal. I kind of attributed it to stress because I was such a workaholic. Many people who are overweight or very obese have been on diets their whole life. My mom had me on my first diet in 5th grade. And Dr. Barnard's book came up about brain foods. And so then that put me on my journey. And like for 6 months, I was reading medical studies and watching documentaries and reading books and articles all about, and everything was pointing to plant-based diet, plant-based diet, plant-based diet was my answer. I have no health conditions now. I'm 66 years old on no medicine. But again, I've been doing this like over 11 years. But yeah, I think the first thing I noticed was how much my energy level changed. I had so much energy. I just was like amazed. I thought, wow, I haven't felt this good since I was like 20, you know? This is my health, and this is what's the most important thing for me. And I had to come to that realization that I'm doing this for me.
Hello, lifestyle changers! I'm your host, Dr. Adelita, and welcome to my special episode of Sunday Drive I call Doctor Meets Patient. This is brand new, and I thought this will be our kind of a special gift to our audience for our first year anniversary. You see, I've been talking solo live every Sunday since 2023. But off camera, I have met many incredible people with life changing stories that I feel the world should know, that you should know too, or at least hear about them. So, if you have followed me, I mentioned in my previous videos that I will be conducting interviews with guests, and these guests are doctors and patients. That's why it's called Doctor Meets Patient. These doctors are my colleagues, most of them in lifestyle medicine in various specialties who will share their knowledge, their insights and experiences, personal journey, giving us their unique perspective in different health topics. I will also interview people who have graciously agreed to share their health stories and journeys, and their stories will offer a first-hand look of their challenges and triumphs that you can absolutely relate to. And this will provide a deeper understanding and empowerment that hopefully my goal is for you to say, if they did it, I could do it too. And just like Karla, this is my good friend Karla Freeze, where I met her when I was still in Illinois about maybe 5 years ago, and she remains to be my good friend of mine, and we still communicate. She owns Purely Plants on Facebook, where she helps educate, inspire, and share other success stories with her 30,000 followers. And that is pretty amazing. Karla is sharing her personal story with us today in her transition to whole food plant-based lifestyle. Her story, I'd say, is one of the most amazing stories I've ever heard. And I'm so grateful she said yes to my invitation to be my guest here today.
Hi, Adelita.
How
Thanks for
are you?
having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm sure our audience is excited to hear your story. That picture paints 1,000 words. and it's nice to hear it from you directly. So thank you for gracing us with your time. Um, and let's dive into my questions today that I hope
Okay.
my audience are also eager to hear from you. Okay, so Carla, can you tell us a little bit about your background? What do you do?
I'm an accountant and a yoga teacher right now.
Perfect, perfect. Um, I'm sure you're still busy with both uh, things,
Yes.
right? And your career.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So tell us if you can tell us about your health struggle. How long ago was that? What were those health struggles and how long ago?
I had been somewhat overweight my whole life. And then in my early 20s, I started getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And I was somewhat of a workaholic. So I was very sedentary lifestyle. And despite being overweight and very overweight, obese, I was relatively healthy. 2007, I was diagnosed with sleep apnea, and I got a CPAP machine. And then in January of 2008, at my normal checkup at the doctor, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol. I had also been suffering for many years with psoriasis, but I didn't really think about it being that big of a deal. I kind of attributed it to stress because I was such
Mm-hmm.
a workaholic. But so the sleep apnea, the high cholesterol, the diabetes, um, and the psoriasis were my main issues. And then later that year, well, I guess let me back up a little bit. So then the doctors prescribed metformin and some simvastatin. I'm not sure how to say that, but it's a high cholesterol, my high cholesterol, and a special like $50 psoriasis cream that was to help me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that was me the beginning of 2008.
So you have obesity. How heavy were you then, if you
I
don't
I
mind?
weighed three I weighed 371 pounds.
Wow. 371 pounds. Do you recall
Yeah.
like how many years you think you've accumulated that weight?
Well, I remember when I was 21, I weighed 235, but I had gained and lost. Many people who are overweight or very obese have been on diets their whole life. My mom had me on my first diet in 5th grade. So she felt like I was heavy in 5th grade. My mom was very tiny and I was just a bigger bone structure.
Mm-hmm.
But she thought I was bigger than her, then I was heavy and I needed to be on a diet. So she closely monitored my food. So that just made me go sneak food, go out
Uh,
behind the bushes in the backyard and eat Oreos because that's what I did.
uh-huh.
But yeah, I was heavy, and then I lost as much as 100 pounds one time and gained it all back
Yeah.
plus some. So
Oh.
it's just a very yo-yo kind of situation with many people who have been overweight their lives.
Mm-hmm. So you have obesity, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, psoriasis, and so
Sleep apnea.
sleep apnea. And wow,
Hmm.
that's a lot, right? Um,
Hmm.
so at that time, at the peak of your not so good health condition, um, do you have some idea of what your health must look like instead?
No, I really hadn't even considered it. I was really very surprised when he gave me that diagnosis because I've never felt sick. I just knew I was overweight, and overweight, I had trouble getting into places and I had broken chairs, and the on the airline, I always had to have a seatbelt extender and seatbelt extender in my car. But I just always said I was just overweight. I was just overweight. I was just overweight. I never really thought about any other complications with my health that would have been, associated with that.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I got overweight myself too, and my husband as well. And as we were looking back to it, like, how did we not get some, inkling that we're not healthy? Yeah.
Right.
And I think because when we talk about weight, it accumulates over time. You don't wake up suddenly one morning and you're 100 pounds heavier, right? So it's a like a slow pace, but and you have your mind had time to adjust to it, to accept it, and in your body maybe adjusting too until you get into this serious medical diagnosis.
Sure.
So at that time, you had the diagnosis. um did you instantly have did you instantly feel like, oh my gosh, I need to do something about this
Yes, that day.
that day?
Immediately that day, I went to a friend's house after my doctor's appointment, and she and her daughters were going for ice cream, and they asked if I wanted to go for ice cream, and I said, I will ride with you, but I'm not having ice cream. And she said, why not? And I said, I was just diagnosed with diabetes. I said, I am not having ice cream. I actually made a change that day and started whatever the protocol was for the doctor and the diabetic coordinator or educator, I guess. I went to see a diabetic educator after my doctor's appointment. So I started on the protocol they recommended that day. I was not going to be sick. I had it in my brain. I'm not going to be sick.
Wow. And that is pretty, striking because I know, with people who entertain to change, the biggest question is really like, why. The how
Right.
is doing it is easy. You can look it up, right, in the internet. But what I'm curious, what was your big why?
I don't know. I guess I had just never felt like I was sick. And then now all of a sudden he's telling me that I'm sick. And I'm just like, I'm not going to be sick. I'm just not going to be sick.
So
So I started doing everything they said for me to do because I was trying to get rid of the diabetes. I was trying to get rid of the high cholesterol. I was following what they asked me to do and doing the medicine and everything.
okay, and so let's talk a little bit about that because I'm curious. What have you tried at that time? Because some people are dabbling,
Right.
different things and see if it works
Right.
or not. What have you tried that worked, and what have you tried that has not worked?
Well, prior to that diagnosis, I had just tried to lose weight with some success. And then, of course, you get off of that. It's because it's a diet, it's not a lifestyle change. So you're constantly changing your food. But I had never really done anything else about my health because I didn't think I was sick. I just, I didn't know till that day that I had those issues, except for the sleep apnea. But they really never told me why I had sleep apnea or what causes sleep apnea. We really never talked about it. They just said, you have sleep apnea here. Here's a CPAP machine. And then the diabetes, you hear about diabetes your whole life, but I guess I wasn't educated enough in that, even as to what, caused it or what the problem was or what I should do until that day.
Mm.
So yeah, like I said, I just started on the protocol that he recommended.
Mm-hmm. And did that protocol work?
Well, I lost some weight. I kept going back to the doctor every 6 months, and he would say, "Oh, you're doing great. Keep taking the medicine. You're doing great. Keep taking the medicine." And I said, "But I still have diabetes." And he goes, "Oh, you're always going to have diabetes." He says, "You'll always be on the medicine."
And that's the metformin.
That was the metformin. I was
Okay.
taking it twice a day, plus my high cholesterol, plus the psoriasis, plus I was on anxiety medicine by now. Um, and then, of course, checking my blood sugar twice or three times a day, pricking my finger back then.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, with the protocol, did you lose weight? I mean, what were the successes that you
Yeah, I
experienced?
started losing weight. It was recommended to me to do low carb and high protein. And the diabetes educator actually recommended like 95 grams of protein for me a day, which now I know was high.
Mm.
But at the time, they felt like that was the best option for me to lose weight. And they thought if I lost weight, then my diabetes would be more controlled.
Mm-hmm. Now, you are a big advocate now of a whole food plant-based diet. In fact, your Facebook page is purely plants. Um,
Right.
so when when did this transition happen? I mean, what kicked it off?
Well, so this was 2008. So for 2008, 9, and 10, I continued to do what the doctor said. And he said, when he said, "Oh, you're never going to not be diabetic and you're never going to not be on the medicine," then I just got really discouraged. I
Mm-hmm.
thought, okay, well, the whole point here was to get rid of my diabetes, and I still have it. And I've lost this weight and I still have it. So then I went back to a standard American diet. I stopped eating the way he recommended because I was just so frustrated with it. And that lasted probably about a year. And of course, I gained a lot of the weight back that I had lost. And in 2011, my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. She had been like, they were concerned about her, but it really started getting worse. And then when she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, then I started thinking about my family history, and my dad's dad had Alzheimer's. My mom's mom had Alzheimer's. My dad's sister had Alzheimer's. And now my mom had Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh my gosh, what does my future look like? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally, in 2012, the summer of 2012, I literally sat at my computer and typed into Google, "How do I prevent Alzheimer's?"
And what did you find?
That was my why. That was my why. And Dr. Barnard's book came up about brain foods. And so then that put me on my journey. And like for 6 months, I was reading medical studies and watching documentaries and reading books and articles all about, and everything was pointing to plant-based diet, plant-based diet, plant-based diet was my answer, to reverse the diabetes. And so that was my Christmas present to myself in 2012 was I watched Forks Over Knives, the documentary, on a Sunday. On Monday, I changed all my food, and I've never looked back. One day, I mean, just overnight, I did it, and I've never looked back.
Wow. So 2007, 2008, you got all those diagnoses, and you got to know about plant-based in 2012. So that's 4 years
So 4 years,
of kind of dabbling, kind of,
right,
and not
and,
getting,
and yeah,
not really getting, I mean, you're very sure about what you want. I want to reverse my diabetes, right?
right,
And you
right,
didn't even know yet what your why. And that
right,
happens to many people. But I think that there's just that itch inside, that I can't settle for anything less. I can't settle for, for just maintaining the disease. I cannot be the host of this, disease that it's gonna that are only gonna eventually knock me
right.
down.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Can you share a personal experience or a fragment of that story of how plant-based diet has positively impacted your health? Like, a specific change, if you will, that our audience can perhaps start them to think about what they also can change.
Sure. Sure. Well, I totally reversed all my health conditions. I have no health conditions now. I'm 66 years old on no medicine, but again, I've been doing this like over, well, 11 years, over 11 years. But yeah, I think the first thing I noticed was how much my energy level changed. I had so much energy. I just was like amazed. I thought, wow, I haven't felt this good since I was like 20. So that energy level was the first thing that I really noticed. And then just overall well-being and just feeling better as the way I walk through the world, much better mood all the time, much calmer, more positive. And then my diabetes went away, my high like cholesterol went away, I had plantar fasciitis that went away, the psoriasis all just totally disappeared. And I lost 236 pounds.
And can you tell us I've seen this so many times in my patients, but can you tell our audience, how long did it take for these conditions
Well,
to
my
reverse?
I kind of felt like my body would get to what its natural weight would be because I was just eating the foods, in my opinion, and you also believe in that are the best for our bodies, the whole food plant-based. So I was eating all that. So I just thought that's the natural fuel that my body needs. I'm getting the nutrients I need and the vitamins I need, and the variety and the fiber, of course, is imperative. And I think my body's just going to get where it should be. So I had a goal, like kind of in the back of my mind, that I wanted to be at 155, which is where I was in high school. Everybody's like, oh, I'd like to get to my high school weight, right? But I got to 135. So I started my plant-based diet in 2012, the end of 2012. So I really didn't start till the beginning of 13. So 13, 14, 15, 16, 5 years. And I was at my 135 is where I was. So yeah, it
Wow.
was 5 years. So it was a very slow
Gradual.
process. Yes, exactly. And of course, the saying, you didn't put it on overnight, you're not going to take it off overnight. But I wasn't even worried about the weight. The weight coming off was a total side effect. I hadn't even planned that. I was trying to get rid of my diabetes.
It's kind of a welcome side effect, right? The
Right.
weight loss.
Right.
And so for diabetes, typically we check this test called A1C every 3 months for our diabetic patients. How long did it take for your A1C to reverse back to normal?
It was within a year.
Within a year.
It was within a year. Yeah. I was actually off my medicine in just a matter of months. From the diabetes. I was a matter of months for the medicine, and then my A1C came down. I remember the day it was 5.1. And I called everybody I knew. I said, my A1C is 5.1. I was so excited. But yeah.
So
It's the little thing.
yeah, I mean, relieving to that experience is still kind of fresh, for any lifestyle changer.
Mhm.
Karla, I know that you're also a big supporter to lifestyle medicine. American College of Lifestyle Medicine advocates a whole food plant-based diet, and for any plant-based eater or in a plant-based lifestyle, you really can't help, in my opinion, you really can't help but kind of touch other areas of healthy lifestyle too. Because as you said, suddenly I have this energy and I don't know how to spend it. I remember one of my patients are like, can I go to the gym? Like, sure you go, can I do hiking now? Because he was once
Yes.
fearful that he's going to get some chest pain or shortness of breath. But this immense amount of energy is meant to be expended, but in a way, positively reinforcing uh, other health benefits because of the exercise benefits too, right?
Right.
So
So many.
yeah. Karla, if you don't mind, maybe our audience also want to know what are the what are your challenges, your personal challenges, or kind of barriers, and or if you felt that, the challenges, difficulties of that you faced when you adopt a plant-based diet.
Well, food is such a social thing. So I struggled with my friends for a long time. They didn't want to go out to eat with me. If it's hard to find something in a restaurant sometimes. So until you get really familiar with eating this way, you're cooking at home. It's a lot easier to stay on course, and you just do have to have a very strict mindset when you're going out, because it's harder to find something when you go out. But yeah, that was a struggle. My social circle, I guess, was a struggle. But then I started thinking, okay, so you want to be with friends, just come over. We'll make a few snacks, which is always have veggies, and play cards or whatever. So you don't have to go out to eat to a restaurant, to have some social time with your friends. And it's always revolves around food.
Mm-hmm.
But
How did you
yeah.
how did you convey that to your friends? That can really be challenging, and you began to self-question.
You do, and you don't want to make a fuss, and you don't want anybody to be mad at you. And you just have to realize that I just said, this is my health and this is what's the most important thing for me. And I had to come to that realization that I'm doing this for me. I'm not doing it for Kathy or John or, whoever my friends are. And I have lost friends over it. Honest to goodness, I have. Because if they wanted to go out and I said, there is nothing on the menu there that I can eat, but I would love to go with you and just have a glass of tea and just visit, right? And they're like, oh no, if you're not going to eat, then we're not going.
And I can totally relate to that. And I think that's one of the unexpressed concern of many people that's still on the fence to switch to a plant-based diet. That's a hard truth and painful truth too. But sounds like you are not a people pleaser.
I'm on a health journey and it's my health and I'm the only one that has any control over it.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. And I do salute you for that. I think that's one thing that our audience can actually pick up to in this interview, because a lot of times it's not that they don't want to do it. They're just scared,
Sure.
to face the truth about maybe losing some friends or not, not welcome, not accepted. And I think also what helps so much too is being in a crowd that has the same um, intention, with their
Right.
health. You may
Right.
lose some friends, but you also surely going to gain some friends that are aligned.
You do. Yes. Yes. You're
That's
gaining friends. They're aligned with your same health journey and
hmm
everybody feels good and everybody has energy and you go for hikes, or you go to take a yoga class. But I think that you're exactly right. Dr. Hamus, is that most people focus on what they have to give up and not what they have to gain. And I can never preach that enough. There is so much that you will gain by changing your food to whole food plant based. I mean, it's a whole lifestyle. It's, you sleep better. We talked about this before, the different pillars of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. So I could do more exercise.
mm-hmm. And the brain. It's also one thing that our audience should know. Human brain can only measure what you can lose. When you're about to step into another world that is good for you, whenever something is new, the brain cannot measure what you're about to gain. It can only quickly, just immediately measure what you're about to lose. So yes, it has to be a conscious, intentional mindset that you're not actually losing. It's just that the brain only picks up immediately the losing, but later on will catch up with the gaining. So looking back, Karla, was it worth it?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. 100%, 1000%.
1000%. And man, your story is really, a great example of sometimes in life you just have to listen to what your heart tells you, even if the mind is still kind of disagreeing or not knowing, just like you didn't know your why yet until your mom got sick with Alzheimer's. We all have different phases of our journey, but I hope that our audience has picked up something really valuable about our talk today. Karla, you own plant purely plants, and I'm really proud of you for that, and share that to my friends as well. You help others transition whole food plant based diet. I know you're not coaching anymore, but if someone comes to you and only commit and say, Karla, I can only commit to one thing to change first, what would that be?
Simply add more plants to your diet. Just add more plants. And if you're now eating a large piece of meat, cut that in half and add more plants onto the plate. Just keep adding more plants and you'll start to feel better already.
Perfect, perfect. Now, I mean, that slow transition also is a good way, right? For many people, it works a lot, and you don't.
Absolutely.
In that way, your brain
Absolutely.
can adapt to not losing something. You're just transitioning.
Right.
Thank you
Right.
so much, Karla. Thank you for sharing your time with us and your story. Helping people is your passion,
It
and I
is.
know that you've done that today by inspiring them with your story. Thank you so much, Karla. And
Thank you, Dr. Amos.
you're welcome. You're welcome. And to our audience, I hope you can join me live every Sunday. Make it a Sunday routine to join me live. That's every Sunday, 8 a.m. Pacific time, or that's 11 a.m. Eastern time. And to my kababayans in the Philippines, that's Sunday, 11 p.m. Bye for now, and I'll see you next week.